So in lesson 3, we're going to start playing and listening. I like to start with an accompaniment to make it fun for my students to play their notes, but also so that you can start off playing in tune right from the start. You can practice listening and you can practice rhythm. So I use this excellent app that my son told me about, actually. iReal Pro is its name. We'll put a link in the description, and I use that to give us a nice little background. But any drone thing, you can get drones off YouTube. That's a nice way to have an accompaniment. Just want to make sure you're playing in tune and it makes it more fun. So I've set this on G major because anybody who plays oboe or has played recorder knows that B, the first finger, A, the second finger, and G are good ways to start. These are 3 very, quite easy notes, and you've got to start somewhere. So let's start there. I'll pop the music on. You only need to play single notes to start with, and then we'll make it more complicated after that, like so I did those 3 notes slurred, and that means I didn't use the tongue to change the notes at all. I just kept blowing all the way through. Which is nice for slurred notes, which have a big line over the top of them. But also we need to learn to tongue the notes, to articulate them. That means you put the tip of your tongue onto the end of the reed and stop the air in between. It's important to make sure that the tongue and the fingers are coordinating, but that's just practice, and you'll soon get the hang of it. If it sounds nice, it's nice, it's good. Always a nice big breath before you start. You need lots of air. You're actually sitting on top of a balloon of air. Even if it seems as if you don't have to play something very loud, just take a big breath all the time. Or in a way, it doesn't really matter what you play, you're just practicing, so you can just play one long note. How long can you play it for? Time yourself. If you get up to 60 seconds, I'll be really impressed. Shall we do the chromatic scale? I'll just go over that. Keep your fingers rested over the keys. If they're close to the keys, and especially if this one is nicely curled as well, then the fingers will go down nice and easily. As you can see, there's little holes in these keys, especially that one. Sometimes people don't quite cover those properly, so that's why your fingers should be nicely rounded and be ready to play. Also with fingering, you've got 2 Fs. This F that I was playing then is this little tiny thin key that the 3rd finger presses. It's called the key F. There's actually another one up here on most oboes, which is the same thing. That's a key F as well. And then there's another fingering for F, which is called forked F, which is this one. And when you're playing on, particularly a nice light oboe like this, a junior oboe and you're a young student playing in band, and playing band as soon as possible is great, but you always have to end up playing in keys that use forked F, because you're playing E flat before it. So the fingering for E flat to forked F is a little bit complicated, like lifting 2 fingers at once. And that's why we can't go from E flat, where these fingers are busy, to key F. That's why we have to do this forked F, which is fine. But this is why the junior oboe is so brilliant, because bringing the keys closer together has made it lighter for small hands to use. I've actually had students that had to play in band E flat to forked F, and with the weight of a big oboe on their little hands, that was too much effort. It can be quite a strain for a little hand and a little wrist, but the junior oboe makes it lighter and makes it much, much easier. To play the D octave, you're going to need to half hold the middle D, and this is just a little movement of this finger, and it wants to open up that key there. So all you're doing is just moving the finger a little bit, just using one finger there. You don't need to move the whole hand. It's just one finger that slides off to the side. That's why you've got a little extra bit on that key, so somewhere to put your finger when you move it off. And then that makes middle D. So bottom D was all 5 fingers, 6 fingers, sorry, all 6 fingers. And middle D is half whole. And then you need to go from, when you play from D to E, you have to put it back on again and use your octave key. So there's this little pinch that goes from middle D to middle E. So that means that these 2 fingers, middle D, for middle D, you've got your half hole open. And then when you play E, you have to put it back on again and open the back octave key, which opens that hole. And also lift this finger off so that you're playing E. So it takes a little bit of practice, those things, just a little bit to get used to it. And then again, I'm going to use my app. And I'm practiced to D to E. Good practice. We have to work out a way of expelling the unused air. We have enough air in all the time that we could blow up a whole balloon with the air. Even if you're just playing quietly in a short phrase, you need all of that air in order to float on top of it. But then you're going to use the oxygen that's in that air, and it will then become stale air, and you have to get rid of it. It's a lot like swimming. So the other reason why I like this book, the Hinker book, is if you go back to the very first exercise and do the very first one on the page, Hinker's elementary method for oboe, he shows you a technique to practice getting rid of this stale air. And the first exercise in this book is incredibly important. It's not set in any of the exams, but it's really handy if everybody practices it, because it sets up good fundamental technique. That's the beginning of this exercise, number 1, and I always try and start with it because it teaches you why it is you have to get rid of the air and start again. And then later on, in about phrase 4, it teaches you that you can play a phrase and then breathe out and play a little bit more and then breathe in. And that is a really useful technique that stops you getting too tired later on. So this is a very, very good technical foundation exercise. And now G major arpeggio. I'm using the oboe syllabus of the Associated Board of the Royal Schools of Music, which is what I learnt, and the scales for grade 1 are F major, G major and D minor. So we've done G, now I'm going to do F major. Also, I've been doing those scales slurred because I think it's really important that we develop a beautiful legato playing on the oboe. F major legato, G major legato, and its arpeggios. Really nice sound. It's a very important thing to do. So you take a big breath in and you're playing continuously till the end without stopping. We can just do those articulated as well. So this is tonguing F major. I got these scales out of this book, which is the Associated Board of the Royal Schools of Music, ABRSM. Click on the link in the description to go to their website. Thanks for watching.